Well, I am humbled and honored to be the class speaker for the graduating class of 2013, and it is so wonderful to finally be graduating and preparing to move to the next chapter of our lives. On behalf of the class, I would like to express our gratitude to Dr. Harrison, all the staff and faculty members, the clinical instructors of the nursing department, and most of all, our friends and family for all their support. My journey at Columbus State started in the summer of 2008. It took me 5 years to get to this stage. I decided to fulfill a lifelong dream of becoming a nurse. I had been out of high school for 28 years, and I had never attended college, so to say that I was terrified is an understatement. We were still in the quarter system back then. So each quarter, I would take a class or two, just chipping away at those prerequisite classes for the nursing program. And one of the first classes I took was organic chemistry. What was I thinking? It was taught by Dr. Garbo, who was in his 80s at the time. And I tell you what a precious man. On the first day of class, he asked us, every single person in the room, to tell their story. That was the first day of class. He was in no rush to get into organic chemistry. He wanted to know our story. Why were we there? What brought us to organic chemistry? So I told my story, and a week or so later, he shows up to class with this sealed letter. And in his thick Egyptian accent, he says, "This is for your daughters. This is not for you. Do not open it." So I took the letter home. I gave it to my daughter. She opened it. And basically, he had written a note to my daughters because he was so proud of me for going back to school. And he wanted to make sure that they understood the significance of what I was trying to do, which they totally did. They got it. They were very supportive. And, you know, he told them that what I was attempting to do, and I quote him exactly off the card, he said, "She's doing an admirable thing." And he was one of the first instructors at Columbus State to touch me in a very personal way. In the spring of 2012, I was accepted into and began the Columbus State nursing program, which had a very unexpected and personal impact on my life that Dr. Harrison alluded to. In February, I was in my pediatric rotation, and Tammy Montgomery was my pediatric instructor. And you know, I'm sure Tammy gave that pediatric respiratory lecture more times than she can even remember. And neither she nor I, sitting there in that room that day, could even begin to dream of the impact that lecture was going to have on my life. So February 19th, I go to babysit the babies. Emma was 15 months at the time. Lauren was 3 months old. And I had just stepped through the front door of the house, my daughter's house, and I hear this strange rattling noise, and I'm like, what the heck? Is the furnace on the fritz or what, you know? And then I realize it's the baby. My son-in-law was in the kitchen tidying up. He was headed out of town for the day. My daughter was already at work. She's a first grade school teacher. And as I lifted the baby up from her swing, which is where she was sitting, talking about Star Trek, you know, that transporter thing where they beam me up Scotty kind of thing? Tammy Montgomery, I swear to you, appeared. I'm not lying to you. You think I'm joking, I'm not. She appeared right in front of me, and she was giving that pediatric lecture again, and she was saying, "Babies will go along and they will fall off in respiratory distress." And she moved her hand, and I literally saw her do that. And I knew we were in trouble. And I said, "Ryan, my son-in-law, I am so afraid. This baby is sick." So he calls the pediatrician's office and they said, that's fine, bring the baby in, we'll see her at 11. It was 8. And I said, you know, she won't make it that long. Because while he had been on the phone on hold, you know how it is when you call the doctor's office, I was doing my nursing assessment, right, Tammy? You know, this head to toe quick thing. I had unzipped her sleeper and her little ribs are retracting like this. And I'm trying to count her respirations, you know, and she's breathing so fast, I can't even keep up with her. And so I did what any good nurse would do. I started to cry. So I was just right on the edge of freaking out, but I was trying to keep it together. So Ryan agreed to take the baby to the local emergency department. I think more to get away from his crying mother-in-law, because, you know, you're faced with this decision, okay, do I go sit in this crowded emergency department waiting room, or do I stay here in the living room with my mother-in-law who is crying? Okay, yeah, emergency department. So they called for an ambulance from there. She was taken to Children's, put a tube down her throat, hooked her up to a ventilator. But, you know, really, I'm only telling you this story to say that you know, every time I look at that baby, I'm going to remember that it was my education at Columbus State that played a part in saving her life. And every time I see her smile, I'm going to remember Tammy Montgomery, an instructor who cared enough to deliver that lecture time after time after time after time, like it was a lecture that was going to make a difference in somebody's life, and it was a lecture that could even save a life. And I'm happy to say, like Dr. Harrison said, Lauren just celebrated her first birthday. She's happy, she's healthy. And every year when we celebrate her birthday, I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to pause and I'm going to give thanks for my education. You know, I believe education is transformational. It changed my life, and I believe it saved hers. In closing, I just want to say that it's never too late to go after your dreams. It's never too late to pursue a college education. I believe that there was a reason that my college education was delayed for 28 years, because this was the time for me to be in college. This was the time for me to hear Tammy's lecture. This was the time for me to be there for my granddaughter, and this is the time for me to become a nurse. Thank you again. May God bless you on your new careers.